This is a question from Danielle. Great question. What should the progressive strategy be once we get into Congress? Putting a progressive caucus together is a great idea, but it's getting horrendous backlash.
So there exists a progressive caucus already. One of the things that I know, a lot of this is in reference to Alex Ocasio working on starting the brand new caucus is what we called it. Everything was BNC when we all started. So we're like, haha, brand new caucus. How cool would that be? And now she's actually doing it, which I think is really cool. But I mean, this caucus is important because it's one of the ways that we can consolidate a lot of the power of grassroots, no corporate funding progressives. And we can have kind of our group of people and our coalition that we can build on. We can work on legislation together. We can work on pushing legislation together. So I think that does have to be part of it because we have to have some kind of epicenter for all of this power and influence to be focused. And also having that kind of caucus helps keep us in check, right? So it kind of helps us keep on top of each other. It helps us hold each other accountable. It helps us keep our own legislative views accountable, which I think is really, really important when you're talking about being a legislator and pushing progressive legislation. But the other thing that we need to focus on too is how can we as progressive elected members of Congress get this message to areas where people keep telling us that it's not going to resonate. I mean, I keep looking at Kansas, right? At 5,000 people, 4,000 people showed up in Kansas to talk about Medicare for all, debt-free education, and living wage. And there was some conservative pundit who said she was actually really inspired by it. I mean, we're told all the time progressivism doesn't work in the Midwest. It doesn't work in red states. But the fact is, it does. And so one of the things that we need to do as a progressive caucus is take that epicenter of influence, that pulpit that we've created for ourselves through the caucus, and use it to amplify the voices of the people in these disenfranchised states. It's important for us to go there and to work with local candidates in other states. When we isolate ourselves to just my state matters, just this other state matters, that's just my district matters, right? We hear that a lot, but this is federal Congress. This isn't just about one state or one district. This is our chance to represent our district's values on a national level. And we need to make sure that we're not just focusing on one state or one area. We need to remember that this is a nationwide cry for help. This is a nationwide need. I mean, you don't just see wage disparity in Washington. You see it in Texas. You see it in Oklahoma. You see it in Missouri. You see it all across the nation. So when we have this progressive caucus formed, one of the other pieces of our strategy also has to be, how do we get in the field with other progressives in these states? And how do we lift them up with us? How do we elevate other progressives at a national level, at a local level, at a state level? How do we help them and empower them to lean on their representatives, to change their stances, to come over to the dark side and vote for progressive legislation? How do we get them to participate in that 30% of the bills that we want hitting the floor? How do we increase that number? And the best part is through constituent pressure. And being a progressive caucus, being willing to go into these states that aren't ours, where we don't really have any skin in the game other than the movement and the message, that's going to resonate with people. That's going to give people the ability to say, wow, there are representatives out there in these parties that get it. How can I get mine to get it too? Well, and it's like help people do these kinds of things.
It's like what FDR did, like whenever the establishment gave him flack, which they did, even back then, they did, he went straight to the people sitting near a fireplace. And he's like, this is what I want. This is what they want. What do you guys want? And he had the people on his side. He didn't care about the establishment. And I think when people talk about the new left, they talk about how it looks like what happened with the rise of labor in the 30s. And they say that, like when you see something about that in the corporate media, they say that as if it's a bad thing.
Right.
And I say, it's a freaking great thing. We're thrilled about that.
I mean, the fact is your corporate donors, you can have one corporate donor who gives you $10 million, but he's still only one donor with one vote. And if you go out into the people and you talk to them and you're out there in the weeds meeting people and you meet 10 million people, that's 10 million votes. And dollars can't vote. People can. And people feel disenfranchised and they're sick and tired of the status quo. We need to give them a reason to be excited about new candidates, to be excited about new blood. And we do that by going to their doors. I mean, we do that by being willing to put on our sneakers and go knock some doors with strangers in districts that aren't ours. We do that by going to their farmers markets and talking to them about the issues that matter to them and how we can help their lives improve. And this works in red states and blue states. People want to talk about issues. They're sick and tired of talking about partisanship and which party party it should be. I mean, the fact is, working people, whether it's Republicans or Democrats who are in power right now, working people are sick of being sick. They're tired of being tired, and they're exhausted by being exhausted. We're all done, and it doesn't really matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. So being out there as a progressive, talking to the issues, meeting people where they're at, stepping outside our own comfort zones and our own safety nets around our districts, that's what's going to help propel the movement forwards. It's the only way we're going to propel it forwards.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's just the very basic notion. Donald Trump, one of the reasons he won was because he ran on this idea of right-wing populism, which is an oxymoron. But what it proves is that people are ready for real populism. Real populism can win, and it can win in the heartland, and it can win nationwide.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your